Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and once again, it is Sunday, and that means it's time for the Texas Gun Vault Poll Question of the Week. This is a weekly program that I produce where I ask you as my viewers and subscribers about something that pertains to firearms, firearms culture, firearms law, the firearms community in general that I would like to get your thoughts and opinions on. This week I ask if you think nonviolent felons should be allowed to own firearms once they serve their prison sentences. I asked this question because last week's This Week in Gun News, I talked about how the Supreme Court denied cert in 3 potential cases which dealt with this issue. So I was curious how you guys felt. So with that said, let's dive right into this week's question. In my recent episode of This Week in Gun News, I mentioned in one of my stories that I thought nonviolent felony offenders should have their gun rights restored after they are released from prison or serve their sentence. In the comments, I noticed a few people who disagreed and thought a felony conviction should forever bar you from most rights. So I thought I would make this poll for the week. Do you think nonviolent convicted felons should have their gun rights restored upon fulfillment of their prison terms, sentences, and/or probation? So I think this week's question is kind of black and white, and I feel very passionate and strongly about it. But before I give you guys my opinions and why I think that way, let's see what you guys had to say with the results this week. So with 795 total votes this week, we have, yes, they were never a safety risk and they paid their debt, 53%. Yes, but there should be a petition process or time requirement, 29%. No, unless a judge accepts a petition of restoration of rights, 10%. No, once a felon, always a felon, lifetime ban on most rights, 6%. And something else, explain in the comments below, 2%. And so it looks like the overwhelming majority, north of 80% of people, think that nonviolent felons in some way, whether it be immediate upon their release or due to some time restraint or other restrictions, should have their rights restored. This actually gives me a lot of hope for my fellow man. And that is, I do believe in redemption. I do believe, especially, that we should not be depriving people of their rights just because they make a single mistake. One of the issues I really have with American law today is the fact that there is the felonization of so many things. I've heard stories that most Americans can't go throughout their day without committing at least 3 felonies. And I know some of you guys are probably scratching your heads. You're like, what are you talking about? Well, if you actually go and look at all the laws that are on the books, you would be surprised about how many things you do that you think are innocent, that aren't even illegal, that because of the laws that are on the books for whatever reason, actually are felonies. I mentioned this in the past, that Ayn Rand said that the way that a tyrannical government can take control of a population is by slowly making everything illegal, making it a felony, that you are scared to do anything, and then have selective enforcement. Think about it in terms of many of the gun laws that we currently have on the books. There's a number that I have mentioned that really don't get enforced. One of them would be 922R and 922R compliance. I've never seen anybody convicted of this crime beyond an add-on charge of, oh my gosh, they were caught with a gun after robbing a bank, and they're trying to get them on as many charges as possible to make them plea. But I have never seen somebody simply charged with that, but you can. And so imagine if they come to your house and they're part of some type of investigation, or they just want to harass you. Well, we're here on a warrant to check your guns for 922R compliance. Turn them over. Uh-oh, we can't prove where this sear came from. Is it US made or is it foreign made? Well, now you have 11 parts. You're going to jail, and it's a felony. 10 years in prison and $250,000 fine. Well, unless you want to work for us or give us some type of information or cop some type of plea deal. You get people to comply with unconstitutional laws because you make them scared. You make everything a felony, where you can lose everything, and you selectively enforce it. And if you look at the way that laws are written today, pretty much everything that is now illegal is a felony. And then when laws that are still misdemeanors, something big happens in the news, well, politicians have to do something. Well, what are they going to do? We're going to increase the fines and the penalties and the imprisonment for this crime that used to be a misdemeanor. Now it's going to be a felony. And so you can easily be charged innocently of committing a felony, not even know that you've broken the law. Another good example would be you're traveling through New York. You have a pistol permit in your state. You're not even going to New York, you're just passing through. Well, you get stopped by the cops, you're a good citizen. Officer, I have a concealed carry permit in my state, and I just want to let you know that I have the gun on me. Well, now you're going to jail. You thought because in pretty much every state in the union, that's a legal activity. Well, now your life is pretty much over. You're going to be in jail. You're going to have your gun confiscated. You are now a felon and you can never own guns the rest of your life. You never wanted to hurt anybody, but your life is turned upside down. It's a punitive thing. They just want to make as many things felonies as possible to deprive you of your rights. It is my personal belief that this is actually a long-term strategy of the anti-gunners. If they can't get you to give up your guns, well, they're going to make you give up your guns by making everything a felony. You get arrested, and even if you don't serve a day in jail, and it's a non-violent offense because you got pulled in on this crime, well, now you got to give up your gun rights. And most likely, if you have a gun, you're going to vote against them because you probably have a certain political persuasion. So now they're taking people out of the potential voter pool and gun owners. And you never had to serve a day in jail, and you had no intent of hurting anybody else. I also personally believe that our justice system is about rehabilitation and not about punishment. The whole concept of our justice system is in the name, justice. It's not retribution. I personally believe that if you commit a crime, you should do the time if you plead guilty or go to trial and are found guilty. But once you serve your sentence, once you're back in society, once the justice system says you have served your debt to society, you are rehabilitated, welcome back, I believe all rights should be restored. How can you expect people to want to continue to be a productive member of society if you deny them rights, if you deny them the ability, the human right of self-defense, if you deny them the right to participate in the election process? You feel like you are not part of society. You are exorcised from society, even though you live amongst everybody else. It makes it harder for you to get a job because now you have to tell everybody, I'm a convicted felon. And who's going to hire you? It's too much of a risk, even if the crime you committed was non-violent and for the most part extremely low level, but now it's just a felony. You have a hard time making a living, so you're probably going to have to return to a life of crime to put food on the table. You're not allowed to defend yourself, but we all know that you're probably going to need to defend yourself. It puts you in a real bind, and it makes you not want to participate in society in a productive way. But I do want to say that if you are a repeat violent offender and you have proven to yourself time and time again that you cannot be trusted with a firearm, well, you should actually still be in jail. I believe that if you are out of jail and are not adjudicated mentally defective, you should have all of your rights. If you are too dangerous to have a firearm, you should not be on the street, period. And you stay in jail until you are. But that's my personal opinion. Just because I'm a libertarian, I believe in freedom and I believe in second chances. But let's break each one of these down and I'll give you guys my thoughts. We have, yes, they were never a safety risk and they paid their debt. Well, pretty much, I just told you how I feel about that. And that's just the truth of the matter. If you have paid your debt to society, you belong back in society and you should have all of your rights restored. You don't want people living in your society with resentment because they are a second-class citizen. Then we have yes, but there should be a petition process or time requirement. Well, I definitely think the first option is the way to go. I believe common ground could be a time requirement. Okay, once you get out of jail, You cannot have your rights restored for a year or 2 years, some type of time frame so you can get reacquainted with what society is like and that you can get yourself back on your feet. I kind of feel like, as I said, this is common ground. Maybe people that think that felons should not be immediately allowed to own guns, but you give them a time, a year, 2 years, something reasonable, and go, okay, you've been out of jail, you have been living among the people and society just fine. Okay, your rights are back automatically. You should not have to petition. It should be an automatic thing. And I think this is, as I said, a great compromise. Then we have no, unless a judge accepts a petition of restoration of rights. Now, this is kind of the way that the system currently is. And as I've already said, I kind of think it's unfair. You get convicted of something, and it can be even a nonviolent, low-level offense, and your entire life is stained because of it. You have to spend tens of thousands of dollars that you may not be able to acquire because you can't get a job to try to get those records expunged. You can never vote again. You can never own a firearm, but you may have 40, 50 years ahead of you. And most likely, because you can't get a job, you're not going to be living in the safest of places. Well, you do need the right to self-defense. I believe it is an inalienable human right that everybody should have. So as long as you're not incarcerated, that should be your right. But apparently people kind of like the system. 10% of people like the way it is, and that's okay. We can disagree and still be friends. Then we have no, once a felon, always a felon, lifetime ban on most rights, 6%. And all I gotta say is, wow, you guys are harsh. I kind of think that those people that voted this way should put the shoe on the other foot. As I mentioned, imagine driving your car down the road and maybe you're going 25 miles over the speed limit. Well, there might be some jurisdictions here in the United States that because there was a terrible and tragic accident where somebody was going 35 miles over the speed limit and killed a kid, they changed the law that going 25 over is a felony. Well, you go 25 over and now you're a convicted felon the rest of your life and you lose all of your rights. It can happen to you. There's a lot of people in our society that get entrapped by this and their entire lives are ruined and they never intended to hurt anybody, or maybe they made a stupid mistake. Don't you think they deserve forgiveness and a second chance? And then finally we have something else. Explain in the comments below. So that's how I feel about this, but let's see what you guys have to say with the top rated comments of the week. And with the top rated comment of the week, we have Landon Boyer, who says, if a felon is too dangerous to own a firearm, then they aren't safe enough to be let out of prison. They should be allowed to own firearms. If someone is that much of a danger to society, then that person should be getting a life sentence or the death penalty. And I think he summed up my points very concisely. Then we have Riley C., who says, it seems pretty logic. If you can freely walk the street, then you should have all of your rights. If you're not safe enough to own a gun, you should be locked up. One way to control this better is to extend the probation period for violent offenders. I agree if they're free, but on probation, they should have rights restricted. I've heard a lot of accounts of felons, and 80 to 90% are decent people trying to get their rights back. And I agree with that as well. As I said, this is kind of a compromise. If you're on probation or maybe some type of time limit once you've served your term, okay, maybe you still have restricted rights just to make sure you have truly and can adapt back into regular society. But after you've proven that, all rights should be restored. We don't want people having this stigma, this scarlet letter for the rest of their life that they can never overcome. And it creates a limitation, which means they might have to turn to a life of crime again just to survive. Then we have Milton Oliver, who says, if they are non-violent, non-habitual offender, then yes. These folks have paid their debt to society and deserve the right to protect themselves and their loved ones and communities. You know, there are many people that are convicted felons who are good people and can be very productive and care about their fellow man and their communities. That is why I personally believe that all these people should have their rights restored if they're walking amongst us. And I agree with Milton. Then we have 704AB who says, if they serve their full sentences, voting and gun rights should be restored automatically. Note, no parole, no early release. 40 years means 40 years. Life means you never vote or shoot or eat McDonald's again. And you know, I agree with this as well. I think that if you are sentenced to prison for a certain length of time, you have to do that time. It's not right that somebody gets convicted of murder and they say, well, you're going to do 30 to life. And then they get out in 10 years for whatever reason, whether it be that they are on good behavior or whether the prison is overcrowded. You should serve your time. If our justice system was truly about justice and not revenge, and truly about rehabilitation, this should be the way it is. And then finally we have Augie 93 who says, even those convicted of gun crimes and violent crimes should have their rights restored and respected upon release from prison. Just because someone goes to prison doesn't mean they should no longer be able to defend their person. So for me, he goes even beyond what I say. I'm saying non-violent offenders. He's actually saying violent offenders should have their rights restored. And maybe he has a point. If they are released, if they are safe enough to walk in the general population, maybe they should. And that's a good debate to have. And maybe one day here in the United States, if we ever truly have criminal justice reform, it's something that can be addressed. So there you go. That is the Texas Gun Vault poll question of the week. I always love getting your responses. It looks like this week I was once again in the majority. Sometimes I'm really in the minority and the only one that thinks a certain way. But I'm so glad to see so many of my fellow patriots are freedom loving and want to give people that are convicted of felonies, nonviolent felonies especially, a second chance. We all deserve to be redeemed because we all make mistakes. So, if you want to participate in next week's poll, please go to the community tab of my YouTube channel. There will be a link over there. I will also put a link in the description below. Go over there and vote, comment, and like other people's comments so we can get the top rated comment of the week. I look forward to seeing the results and getting your thoughts and opinions. I think next week's is going to be on retro guns. So, let me know what you guys think about this poll and the results in the comment section below. And as always, thanks for watching.